I'm Dr. Chris Ferguson, and I am Museum Director at Gefrin, Anglo-Saxon Museum and Distillery in MLitt, and I'm an alum of St. Cross. Anglo-Saxon archaeology has always been a passion of mine. I did my undergraduate at Newcastle Uni and in archaeology, and I got really interested in Anglo-Saxon archaeology towards the end of it. Rediscovered it because Gefrin's quite near to where my grandma lived, and it kind of always intrigued me. Applied to a lot of unis to do a master's, and Oxford, and particularly St. Cross, Oxford had this real strength in Anglo-Saxon archaeology, so it felt like a really natural place to come and study it, to be part of it, to immerse myself in it, to understand it more. And it kind of was one of the great things about Oxford when I came here, was that you can go to the Ashmolean and there's all that Anglo-Saxon material you can go and look at, that you can go to lectures, you can go to seminars, and some of like the best and the brightest people talking about Anglo-Saxon material culture or visual arts or language and literature. You could find that. St. Cross was one of the fondest bits I had of Oxford. The Institute of Archaeology, the seminar series, the people that I met there, and the people that I met at St. Cross, the breadth of it, I wouldn't have got anywhere else if I'd done a master's or a DPhil. It's the people studying different things, the different conversations you'd have, were the bits that meant the most and have kind of carried on the longest as well post-Oxford. It's the people that you meet. I think it was that challenge that everybody has when they're coming to the end of a DPhil. So you've done all that academic work, you've been immersed in what you're studying, what you research, and you think it is the most exciting thing for you because you've chosen to study that. And then it's that moment of, right, what does an academic career look like? What am I doing? Where am I heading? What am I going to do? I was very fortunate, a project curator's job at the Ashmolean, to work on the early medieval gallery, and then I had a short postdoc as well, and I realised that going into museums was the first step, not going into academia. Probably I'm going to be a lecturer. I like talking to people too much. I like chatting more. I like engaging the public. And then every opportunity that came along after that was the kind of unpredictable one, the one that people were like, well, are you really going to go do that job? And like, well, yeah, because that sounds interesting. That sounds fun. I never thought I'd end up doing what I'm doing now. Like all of the roads coming back together. I think that's probably the joy of the unpredictable path, is you don't know what's going to happen 3-5 years out. You've just kind of got to focus on that bit, make the decision that seems right at the time, and then reassess. It is a really unique thing. So there's different components to it. So obviously the Anglo-Saxon Museum tells the story of Gefrin, of Gefrin. It was the royal palace of the kings and queens of Northumbria 1400 years ago. It was rediscovered and excavated by a brilliant archaeologist called Brian Hope Taylor in the 1950s. So this is set piece archaeology that's taught on the taught courses, first Anglo-Saxon settlement you come across, for that major palace that as we understand them. But it never had a museum. So Sutton Hoo, the great ship burials, that's something, gallery in the British Museum, big site run by the National Trust. Gefrin was a field and the material wasn't shown. So if you went there as a student, as somebody researching it, beautiful, atmospheric, amazing bit of Northumberland, but the story wasn't told anywhere. So part of it was, how do we tell the story? Part of it is museums are, how do you make them sustainable? How are they funded? How do you keep them sustainable without being reliant on permanent grant funding? Part of the objective was a regeneration project. So the distillery side helps fund the cultural work, the education work of the museum, but it's also attached to family business. So my family's background was not in whiskey. I was in haulage and logistics, transport. Obviously, I never went into that. I went to archaeology. The logistics business had stopped doing agricultural haulage a long time ago and had a site not far from Gefrin in MLitt. And as family wanted to do something that created employment, that was a sustainable business, created employment. So the things sit really happily together of a cultural venue, creates employment, shares knowledge and education and learning, but is sustainable financially as well as environmentally for the long term because of the whisky. And then we tell the story of Northumbria in the spirit products. So it's this different routes to storytelling. You can't learn about the whisky without learning about Anglo-Saxons. It's basically the experience when you get there. I think it's absolutely formative. We couldn't have created Ad Gefrin anywhere else. So if you want to pick this up, you couldn't do it in Oxfordshire or somewhere like that, because that story is of the Northumbrian royal court. You know, it's the summer palace, it's seasonally occupied. So we talk about Anglo-Saxon seasonality. It feeds into, once you start living, breathing, and telling the stories of how people 1400 years ago lived with the seasons and with the cycle that goes with that, how they had their feasts, how they did their harvests. It connects to when you're creating spirit products that are rooted in that are working with local farmers, that are working in that way organically, and you can only then create and tell the stories that you're doing because of where it is. I think the thing with archaeology is there always used to be that old phrase when you started out as a postgraduate about transferable skills, but actually archaeology really does have that. If you go out on an excavation, you're helping plan that, you're in a museum, there's so many other skills you have to apply to that. Just general project management, general where do the loos go and who's getting tea and how do you do that, which is so transferable across into creating things like this. The ability to do something that is both practical and academic research based, and to apply the academic research and to apply all the critical thinking, the integrity, the honesty. I think that's what really matters in museum and heritage work today, is being as absolutely honest and authentic as you can be, and showing when you know and when you don't know. And visitors really respond to that. And if you can't, that's the key component from academic training into that sort of world. I mean, one of the challenges, and again working with my dad and my stepmom on this, was quality. This was one of the things that across the piece is, how do you create an experience and a place that is going to last for the long term in very rural Northumberland, of a standard that people perhaps wouldn't expect there. The thing both with what you want to do in any project, in museum stuff, is you're doing stuff for the long term. With whiskey making, you're dealing with decades in timescales. So it's not like modern new build projects where they'll go, well, the lifespan of the building will be 25 years, 30 years, because then we'll deal with something at that point. As one of the challenges we wanted to face was, how do we create this space that's going to be there in 100, 150 years with just ticking over maintenance rather than the building needs substantive work, and doing all of that using local supply chain. So using an architect from the county, and we actively went out with a remit of the ancient boundaries of Northumbria, which allowed us to deal with contractors from Edinburgh down to York, so we could go just outside of Northumberland, but it's still, again, reinvesting in the region and keeping the ethos and that integrity. The challenge and the lesson to share from it all is always holding a vision and an ethos at the core. Not letting circumstance or we had to face COVID, we had to face the Ukrainian war starting and price shocks and things and that, but not letting that knock you off course from what you're wanting to create. It's the storytelling. And I think it's become very sort of fashionable in the world that we are at the minute to be like, I'm a storytelling brand, or we do something. We actually live and breathe that. It's back to that integrity thing of, you can, with making a whiskey product, people want to know exactly where it's from, exactly how it's made, exactly what it's done, and you need to stand there in full transparency and explain that. And it's the same with the cultural offer, with telling the Anglo-Saxon story, with bringing that and sharing that to more people. It's got to be done with complete integrity to it. And if you hold both of those things together, it works really well. It's once you start losing the integrity, those things can't sit side by side. You know, one of the visions for it is when single malt, years from now, on a bar in New York, it's in Japan or something, there's a bit of Northumberland there. There's a bit of that Northumbrian story, there's a bit of our Gefrin on that label. So somebody picking us up for a single malt without any of the other cultural story learns that, is intrigued hopefully to come and visit Northumberland and visit Northeast England. And that symbiosis is the bit that really, I think, makes us different from everyone else. I think that's the thing, is looking at the opportunities that are right in front of you. One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was make decisions on your career, and life in general, but on your career, in 3 and 5 year sort of time horizons. So if there's opportunities in front of you, or you're deciding to stay doing something you're already doing, what are you getting out of it at the end of that 3 years? Where have you improved? Where have you developed yourself? And if you can then look at a sort of interesting opportunity and put it into that bracket, go, right, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that for 2 years. I'll do that for 3 years, because I think I can contribute to it in this way, and I can do something for myself and grow from it. So it's sort of, it's then giving you the opportunity to not sort of think, right, okay, there's one track out of a DPhil, or there's one track out of a master's, and that's the thing I need to do. It's looking across the piece a bit more and going, right, it's a bit challenging, what are the opportunities I can do, and how can I, you know, I might have research interest in this, or I might still be doing that. How can I kind of creatively do that in that space, or allow that opportunity to create a space for me to do something else? I think it's that seizing the opportunity bit. Seize the opportunities that are in front of you. Life is too short. Although things can appear fearful, scary, or, but what if I don't get that, or what if I don't do this, or I need to pursue that. Just try and grasp the opportunity that's there, and go into it as optimistically and open-mindedly as you can into something different if it's there. It's just grasp the opportunities in front of you.